Hey, Michael J.
Wow, man. I don't even know what to say. Like, there's a banned and restricted announcement, and apparently it's only like the number 2 news item on Daily MTG after Mark Rosewater's mailbag.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, this is one of those, 15 bans, 1 unban, 1 substantial rules change.
Like, the 1 unban is just like this
Plus,
joke footnote.
Plus, I don't know, man. Like, this is wild. There's a lot to talk about.
This
here.
is more than I thought was coming, man.
Okay, so to start with historic. So no changes to standard. Including no changes to Valky and any of that stuff, or trickery, anything. We move up to historic on Arena.
Pause there for a second.
Yeah.
That's good. I think Standard's a good format. I like it.
Standard is in a pretty good place. And I know, like, people have talked about the complexity of the draft format, but I've actually been getting into it. I don't know. I kind of, if it a little bit feels like there might be too much incentive for 5-color, I don't know. But whatever. So that's a story for another day. Moving up, historic, we've got Uro banned as promised.
Knew that was coming.
Along with Omnath moving from suspended to banned, which, good. This doesn't table flip anything. This is effectively no other change to historic since Omnath was still not legal anyway.
Yeah, that's just Facebook official, right? Like,
this is codifying it. This is, look, we're not just separated, we're divorced. Like Omnath and Uro are now not cards you can play on Arena.
Oh, man. That's, yeah.
But I think someday they will be. I think that what they're going to do is eventually, someday, there's going to be a format where you can actually just play with the old cards in some way.
Okay, so don't get me wrong.
Maybe not for a while.
I like historic. I like to play historic. I like arena. Like, some old school players don't even like arena. They don't like, it's not cutthroat enough or whatever. But I like those things. I have a hard time imagining that Omnath and Uro are going to be okay in historic. Although, to be fair, historic.
No, I'm saying I think someday they're going to make. Someday I think that the format's going to get there's going to be a third format. I think someday there's going to be arena type 1.
Yeah, like sorts. Whatever the equivalent of like Arena Pioneer would be. Like,
well, maybe not exactly. See, I think what it's going to be like. Okay, so imagine a format where you can play with 1 Uro and 1 Omnath and 1 Teferi.
I would play that.
And 1 Wilderness Reclamation. Doesn't that sound awesome?
Sounds fun, yeah.
Right. I think someday there will be a format that is the type 1 of Arena. Not that they're going to go back and necessarily fill it with, Moxes and Lotus and such, but I think that there's going to be a format. I think there should be a format someday where you can play with 1 of each of the sicko cards. And maybe Brawl will do enough of that, but the problem is they need to ban some of these cards in Brawl anyway, particularly the legendary ones. But maybe we'll get to a world where you can play these cards and in a powered format where it's only the most busted of busted that are restricted, and it's actually a competitive format where you can just play 1 of the restricted cards. But I don't think that format is necessarily ready yet, and I think that we could just chill a little. I think Omnath and Uro, that's a long-term investment. You got to just hold on Omnath and Uro.
That's not like a GameSpot or a Twitter, right? Like, that's just like a mutual fund.
No. Like, GameStop, man. I'm saying, like, we're just going to, like, stop what we're doing and wait for the format to be right for Omnath and Uro, and then it's game on. And that might be, that might not be for a while, but, like, eventually Arena will get to the moon. What about Pioneer, though, man? Because we were talking about how we didn't necessarily want it to be all crazy for historic, but it was like important for Uro to be banned to like clear things up a little with that Sultai and 4-color Sultai.
Oh yeah, I love that ban in historic. So Pioneer did not see this coming.
Well, so I don't know, man. There's not a ban here that I didn't think was going to get banned eventually. First of all, Teferi, another format where Teferi's banned in, great. Teferi also exacerbates some of the problems regarding interactivity. The Wilderness Reclamation ban, great. Obviously, the mana advantage can just be so constraining, and in particular in a format like Pioneer that is a little bit short on cheap disruption and interaction. And then Undercity Informer and Balustrade Spy, have said they're going to be banned ever since Double Face lands, So I don't know, man. What here? Are you just surprised that they just ripped the Band-Aid off and hit this many?
I'm surprised at the number of changes, and I'm surprised at the philosophy behind those changes, right? So Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer broadly fall into a category when you put a deck together using those cards of like, this doesn't really look like Magic to me. Like, I'm saying like, oh, here's some cards that you can, I guess, play some of them upside down. It doesn't really seem like a game of Magic that I've ever, would have thought about playing in 1995 or 4 or 2012. But cool. Like, so they fall into that kind of a category. And separately, if you think about Pioneer as this attempt to relive different great standards or enhance, cross-enhance the decks of different great standards.
I don't think that's what Pioneer is, though.
I think that's a big part of it.
I don't know, man. The fact that they it's like with money or information. All of it, like the majority of all of it, has been in the last 2 years. You know what I mean?
I think that there's whether something shakes out a certain way or not is one thing. I think the intent behind it, as far as I could tell, really was like, let's relive some glory days or like enhance the glory days and sort of. If you look at the red decks from Pioneer, they have very definite flavors of different eras of red decks. If you look at the Stompy decks, you're right. Those very much feel like they were highly influenced from the last couple of years.
Well, it just has to do with how much are certain decks made for certain formats. There have been some times where they really tried to push some mono red stuff, and so a lot of those cards clump together.
Yeah, and if you do that twice over the course of 5 years, you're going to get a very different flavor of deck in Pioneer. But totally. put that aside.
Do you agree that Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer is kind of a gimme, right?
I mean, I kind of chuckled when I saw this, right? But
obviously, I told you that's what they'd have to ban. Like, if you just ban one, it's still a very powerful deck. Yeah, and it sounds like they just had their fill.
They didn't ban it in Modern.
Well, so we'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, so with Pioneer, Uro, obviously, just so powered.
They already said they were going to do it.
The Teferi was something very important and I think very smart. You know what the straw was that broke the camel's back? It wasn't just Teferi on raw power, even though that's why Teferi was on the short list, the watch list all the time. The thing that pushed it over the edge was the Niv Mizzet Bring to Light decks. And the Niv Mizzet,
those have been around for like more than a year.
They have. But they've only recently become two of the defining decks, and they had been getting better and better and better as people were perfecting the recipe. But it's the printing of Raven's Warning that pushed them over the edge and made them so warping.
Yeah, you mentioned that before. The Raven's Warning.
I told you. Raven's Warning is unbelievable in that deck. And so the fact, like, having the package of both Teferi and Raven's Warning is just so brutal. And I know it's somewhat counterintuitive because you're like, Niv Mizzet can't find both at the same time. But that's not what's going on.
They have similar color profiles, similar casting cost.
Yeah, it makes your mana easy.
What kind of Niv Mizzet are you casting that only draws 3 cards?
I'm being conservative. Obviously, you're frequently drawing a lot more, but I'm being conservative. I'm saying that you just start going off. And Teferi solves too many problems, does too many things, is too fewer. And I think the Wilderness Reclamation preemptive ban was actually really smart in this case because it gets banned over and over again anyway, and it's already one of the dominant decks. But the single biggest card holding Wilderness Reclamation in check was Teferi. And so if you're going to ban Teferi, I think banning Reclamation is just a smart heads-up proactive play. I think you could do this one either way of ban Uro and then Spy and Informer. Or if you're going to ban Teferi, I think the format is a better format, and I think that if you ban Teferi, you also ban Wilderness Reclamation. I super approve. This is another one of those. I mean, obviously there's the whole setting fire to $1,000 bloodbath thing, But that's, once you're going to ban all the cards,
I think at some point,
try to make the formats better, Obviously, there's a lot of debt from the last 2 years of nonsense.
Have that conversation. I mean, like, I bought Jade Light Ranger when it was, on the downswing time-wise, right? Like, it was going to run out of being available in Standard, but I kind of needed it to play all the decks I wanted to play, right? So that's like a 75+% loss on Jade Light Rangers. They're not going to see a lot of... I mean, I guess maybe they'll see some play elsewhere, but not like the concentration I needed them for in Standard. I mean, like, that's just how it is when you own cards that you buy in the secondary market, unless you only buy the ones that are Type 1. That's beside the point. I don't think we can even have that conversation. It sucks, though, I would acknowledge. As an owner of alternate art Uro Titan of Nature's Wraths, I would acknowledge that.
I will say that I do like the idea of letting cards move up the formats, and by having so many formats, different cards can all have a spot. Like, sure, Omnath is banned in Historic, but if you move up, you can play Omnath in a format, right? And obviously, like here, Uro being banned in like everything except they didn't ban it in Legacy. But okay, actually, before we jump all the way to that, though, let's talk about Modern, though. Because Modern had 5 bans also. The Uro, like we were expecting, making Uro a Legacy card. But we also saw Tibalt's Trickery, which we were expecting. I don't think there's any reasonable way to stop Tibalt's Trickery at all. Like, in a format that has as busted a cards as, like, Modern has, even if you ban all the Cascade cards, you can just create decks that just Trickery and go off by casting it. I mean, this is maybe there's a way to ban like just 20 cards and change the mulligan rule, 20. But it's so easy to just ban Trickery. Here's what I could not have predicted this set in Modern at all. 3 of those cards, at least, if not 4, were just not on my radar. If not 4, how were there not 4 on your radar? Tibalt's Trickery and Uro were the exact 2 on your radar.
Yeah, but I thought because I assumed they were going to change something in the rules, right? So remember, I also said I think they're going to change something in the rules. I didn't necessarily think they were going to do Trickery and change the rules. So given the fact that they also changed the rules, that's why I
told you that if they changed the rules and that was all they did, it wouldn't be enough. We just talked about this.
It sounds like they agreed with you and not me.
They're totally right. But
You're a professional game designer.
Dude, so the rules here, it's important to note, and then we'll come to the 3 surprise wild cards, but the rules change here I really like it. It's not as sweeping as it could be, but instead it's elegant. It's just, I mean, it's as elegant as it can be with the tiniest little hacky patch, right?
I don't dislike this ban.
When you cast a spell, or Cascade means when you cast the spell, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card whose converted mana cost is less than this spell's converted mana cost. You may cast that spell without paying its mana cost is the original rule. Now the sentence is this nice little run-on. If its converted mana cost is less than the spell's converted mana cost. Which basically means no funny business.
Do you know what I like about that change? More than the impact that it has on the formats? You know what I like about it? It's actually just how the thing should probably play.
Yeah. It reads like a crazy sentence, but it is how it should play. It's one of those... It's weird that the rules didn't work that way.
It's awesome that they didn't work that way for the first week. And then if it doesn't become a problem, it's an awesome thing that it can persist. But the reality is when something like that exists, it kind of can only become a problem, right?
True. I do think it's dope, though, that they set it up where you don't just have to do the front. So, for instance, if you Bloodbraid Elf into Cosima, God of the Voyage, you can still play it as the Omen Keel.
Yeah, that is cool.
That's cool, right?
Yeah.
It also changes the way the Cascade works with other stuff. So, like, if you play Bloodbraid Elf and you reveal Fae of Wishes, you can play Fae of Wishes, but you can't cast Granted. And this doesn't change split cards since they already did this, effectively, because they just added together.
So my reading of this is just the change in my policy reading, right? Forget about kind of the more specific thoughts that you might have had on Tibalt's Trickery. My policy reading on this is the Cascade change makes it so the Valky thing doesn't work anymore. Done. Okay, we've taken care of this problem. Because it doesn't also take care of Tibalt's Trickery, we're just going to old-fashioned way Tibalt's Trickery. Because we don't even want to deal with a world with the Tibalt's Trickery possibility. I don't know, is that as big of a problem? Clearly the Valky one was getting
It's a bigger problem. So the Tibalt's Trickery...
It's more answerable than the...
It is. It's way more answerable, but it's a way more... So the Valky one was more powerful because of how robust it could be. The Trickery one was it was the worst play pattern. It's just not interesting. It's just Belcher. Oh, you're saying the best deck in the format or one of the pillars of the format is Belcher? That's cool.
Go to Legacy with that nonsense. Am I right?
They did, and you can.
But the thing is, the Belcher deck, like the Dredge deck in Legacy, is just the best deck in that format as long as everybody agrees it's not the best deck in that format for that week. Right? But if you just have like an informed populace, like those decks never perform at a sustained level. Right? There's too many answers.
You can react to them.
Yeah, but there's a broad number of very good answers you could play. You just have to play.
In Legacy.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that...
People forget, it's not just that you're playing with half a dozen 0-mana counterspells. There's half a dozen 0-mana Thought Seizes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't even know if it's like just local to Legacy. You just have to have this situation where people agree that it's one of the best decks, and if they agree it's one of the best decks, that it doesn't perform like one of the best decks. But
No. It's not even that they have to agree it's one of the best decks. They just have to agree that they don't want it to be one of the best decks.
Your way of saying it is perfectly fine to me, right?
Okay.
The thing that I look at a modern, right, with potentially a modern that had Tibalt's Trickery, I mean, like, the red decks would just play Deflecting Palm, and that deck wouldn't win anymore, right? Like, it's a very easy answer that they might have played anyway, right? And I think that the blue decks can just deal with this. It's not like the Cosmic Imposter versions like can actually set up a situation that the blue decks can't easily interact with them. But we spent like 20 minutes last week thinking about all the different ways that you could mess with somebody trying to play one of these play patterns that didn't have a Teferi in play, or couldn't Mystical Dispute.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the good guys win. I mean, the bad guys won the moral victory because the good guys had to change the rules. But that's what the bad guys try to do. You just try to get yourself, thrown out of the garden, and that means you won.
I don't remember if I ever shared this with you, but the day that Jace the Mind Sculptor got banned, Catherine called me, "Is Patrick okay?" And I said to her, "Is he okay? He is a proud papa today." This was all he ever wanted.
Yes. Dude, at this point, it's like, I told you Wilderness Reclamation was too good. Told you to...
All right, you totally told me it was too good.
And here we are, Mystic Sanctuary. I told you Mystic Sanctuary was going to be too good, man. You can't just be fetch landing for... put this back on top of your deck? What? What is that?
Vague recollection of somebody trying to get in a flame war with you about Mystic Sanctuary. I mean, I don't think you played with them, but it didn't make any sense. Clearly Mystic Sanctuary is really good. If you ever played against Mystic Sanctuary in a fair deck, a fair deck just keeps getting timely reinforcements. It doesn't feel very fair. Right? It's a really powerful card.
Dude, even a fair deck becomes unfair because they just Mystic Sanctuary Cryptic Command.
Yeah,
it's like, what? Oh, you just have Isochron Scepter Orange Chant for free because you have a fetch land and
that's
a Cryptic
the thing
Command?
That's crazy. A Flooded Strand just puts this on demand, right? That's the thing that's crazy. If you're oh, no, you have to draw the Mystic Sanctuary. No, you don't. You just have to play fetches, which you already do in Modern. Even if you're playing a one-color deck, you can play fetches. You just fetch for basic islands or Mystic Sanctuaries.
But the best counterspell and blue interaction in the format, you also have to play with that.
Hold on a second, Patrick.
Gotcha!
You're saying that I would just play with a bunch of cards that I would have already played with?
Yeah, that's how you build your deck to incorporate Mystic Sanctuary, is that all you have to do is not play with stuff like Glacial Fortress and Mystic Gate or any of that stuff. That's it. That's all you do. There's no other changes needed.
I mean, you feel really good. Like, you feel good inside when you beat somebody who starts 3 Timely Enforcements and plays 4 Mystic Sanctuaries. But it is, while you're doing it...
What did they do to you, man? What did they do to you? I remember when all you wanted in this life was to just play an Indrik Stompholler. You just got a green fatty.
Yeah.
You got yourself a nice little 2-for-1. You foresaw the metagame, and over time you'll get a little incremental advantage from this, from the cliffs. So that's your life.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's nothing but timely reinforcements trauma.
So I could tell you what happened. I was trying to qualify for the Pro Tour as like a 40-something-year-old person, and I was trying to be real clever. And I got there once being clever with your very strong assistance and the listeners. I got there, and then I tried again, and I was trying to be clever. And then, I had this other buddy, also named Patrick, actually. I think you know him. And he's just like, hey, why don't you try this? And I did. And I found, I didn't necessarily know if I won more, but I had to use less mental energy to do the winning. And then secondly, I found a different thing, which was that because I wasn't using all this different mental energy to try to figure out how to get a very slight 2-for-1 using 5 casting cost cards, which, as you know, was my brand for a long time. I was just like, wait a second, I can just play myself a little bit better, because I have a little bit of free mental energy. And separately, I would just get in arguments with Grand Prix top 8 competitors over the course of the Swiss rounds, telling me about how they were never going to lose to me in my terrible lava spikes, right before I beat them with those terrible lava spikes. And I was just like, people don't respect this deck. So that either they don't play cards to beat it, or they just play sloppy, even if they're a really good player. And then, that just helped me out for a while. And, then I liked it. I liked winning instead of losing. It was great.
Good for you.
So,
dude, I know, man. I know what it's like. I feel you, dude. I was playing Mono Red in the mid-90s.
November of 1996 when we met.
So,
and you crushed all. I'm sorry. Didn't you have the same experience where people were like, I have balance. How could I ever lose to your stupid orcish artillery? I have balance. Right before you made them eat their teeth? Because I think you did that 9 times in a row.
Dude, you know what I did to somebody who had one of the people who had balance? Dude, I strip mined myself. It was so good.
Do you ever play a Gorilla Shaman on the first turn in a format where people only played 5 drops or 4 drops? They're like, I have Sarah Angel, and you're like, I have Gorilla Shaman, and you're like, yeah. I wonder if you're ever going to get to your Sarah Angel if my Gorilla Shaman keeps eating your Sky Diamond.
Dude,
did they ever think about that?
Yeah, you ever just Orcish Artillery your opponent's Calduran Outpost token every turn so that your Gorilla Shaman can get in there? You just keep getting in there for 1, and then you Orcish Artillery another Outpost token, and you just keep doing it, man.
That sounds faboo.
It's so good.
Oh my gosh, that sounds awesome.
It is. Dude.
I can imagine that. I can imagine thinking to myself, but wait, won't I do more damage? Shut up. Just kill the token, because the tokens accumulate. Oh, man, that sounds great, Patrick. Yes. See, it's those kinds of moments where you're like, hey, look at your powerful deck. My Grim Lava Mancer's just going to keep killing your expensive cards. I'm going to get in there with this Goblin Guide. That's the 2016 version.
Dude, I don't know if I ever told you this. Remember, I used to care so much more for the mind games. I used to be so into it.
Yeah, you taught me the mind games. I never got off of that, though.
And I don't know. Maybe I got soft in my old age, and I just don't care about all that stuff anymore. But man, that Pro Tour, I actually had a Gorilla Shaman, and my opponent had Mishra's Factories, and I surveyed the situation, made the executive decision, and attacked with the Gorilla Shaman, clarifying that the Mishra's Factory's converted mana cost was 0.
Was this an English Gorilla Shaman?
Oh, yeah.
Because first of all, bravo. Second of all, I did the same thing once with an English Dragonlord Dramica. But
the best is not even saying anything.
Oh, I mean,
you just confidently attack and let them bluff themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's one of those spots where it's like, well, if they block, I'm going to lose anyway. I am not going to win this game if this Gorilla Shaman cannot attack. Like, my situation it's very deeply predicated on the lightning bolts and death spark. My plan is Gorilla Shaman attack because, my God, am I 2 points short? So I'm going to have to find 2 points real quick.
I'm telling you, I feel you as the Red Mage, but I also feel you as somebody who did that with a Dragonlord Dramica. And let me tell you, after I won that match, it made me want to buy not only a Russian set of Dragonlord Dramicas, but also like a Korean set of Dragonlord Dramicas that I would switch in depending on who I was playing against.
Oh, see, if you're going to do that, you might as well switch over and just use some of the, like, I don't know, Russian or something.
No. I actually, at some point, I was just like, I think I should own 2 full copies of this deck.
I don't know, man. I never got into that whole trying to, like, use foreign language cards in order to confuse or obfuscate. I don't know, man.
No, neither did I. I just think they look cool. Now, you know.
But you're talking about
I don't know. They look really cool. See, they wouldn't be fancy. If you were playing against, let's say, a Korean player, Korean cards wouldn't look fancy to them. So you switch to the Russian ones, and it looks cool now. Again, they always look cool.
Dude, this is reminding me of some, like, you gotta, like Manu talking in French, and then he has to, like, switch it up because Kobe can, like, speak French.
Yeah, well, you're the one who brought up the mind games. Let's get back to the banned list.
Simeon's Spirit Guide getting banned. That's not, like, crazy or anything. I think it's funny to change the rules for Cascade and ban Tibalt's Trickery and still ban Simeon's Spirit Guide, but I'm into it. Part of the problem is that Simeon's Spirit Guide is always a part of all of these things that are broken.
It really is.
And even still, they didn't ban Cascade. You can still just Cascade into Living End. Or, you know, like or Ancestral
Balance
Vision.
deck,
Or Restore Balance. Right. So Simeon's Spirit Guide, great ban. I think that it's just sucky if you change the Cascade rules and you ban Trickery and Cascade is still the warping defiant, like 3 of the top 10 decks. I think Simeon's Spirit Guide is a great ban.
So it makes me a little emotionally sad, though, Simeon's Spirit Guide, because it was like the last man standing. Like, they got rid of Seething Song.
No, it's not. You say that. It's just the latest to fall. You can still play Desperate Ritual and Pyretic Ritual. For now.
Until they come for the 2-mana rituals.
No, man, they're coming for Manamorphose before they come for those.
Oh, man, I love a Manamorphose.
Do you think they could just make, like, is there any amount of Pyretic Rituals, not Pyretic, Pyretic, is there any amount of Pyretic Rituals that would be a problem? Like, if you could just play 40, if there was a unlimited, like, if there was, like, a Plague Rat for Pyretic Rituals, would that be a problem? Not a Plague Rat, but you know what I mean, like a pack, like one of those, the rats, Relentless Rat, you know, one of the rats where you can just play unlimited.
I mean, probably not, because you still need an engine card, right? Like, making a bunch of mana in the abstract does not do anything for you. You need the thing to light on fire, right? Like, here's a fire, fire's getting bigger, here's getting bigger. You actually need that fire to burn something now. So it's not like Manamorphose, which is, you know, mana washing at the same time as card drawing, which kind of helps you get there. You kind of already have to be there, and then the Pyretic Rituals just make it hotter or whatever. So that's
kind of how I feel like you can, like, cost some of these things, like, see where the curve should be. For, like, Modern, I think that Modern is a strong enough format that you can have an unlimited amount of Volcanic Hammers and Incinerates and stuff.
Well, yeah, because you can only play so many.
Right. And, well, no, but what I mean is that even if you play them all, it's not broken. Whereas I think in Modern, if you can play with 40 Lightning Bolts, I think 40 lightning bolts is too good. I don't know how many lightning bolts you can get away with. I think that Modern can survive where you're allowed to play with 12 lightning bolts.
I mean,
but I don't think you can play 40. I think if 40 is too strong and too consistent.
People don't play like 16, right? Like there was a deck for like a week or two that had the one that you sacrifice a land and bump and
but they already have. Yeah, but there's already Rift Bolt. You know what I mean? Like there's already a lot of bolts, and I think it puts a lot of pressure on the format. And there's going to come a day where there's too many, but that day is not today. Right now, the hope is that the format continues to scale in power enough that doesn't become a problem. But I think that the format is clearly strong enough that you can have an unlimited number of incinerates. And I think at this point, the format is probably strong enough that you might be able to – I don't know if it's there yet, but you might be able to. And I think that Simian Spirit Guide and Rite of Flame and Seething Song are not the same. Seething Song is +2 instead of +1.
Yeah.
Rite of Flame starting at 1 mana is so different. Simian Spirit Guide starting at 0 and being uncounterable is so different, and having a cost that cheats lots of restrictions.
Well, it's basically a Lotus Petal, right?
Well, but you can play it at instant speed with no warning, with no mana open. You know, like you just boom.
And get in there.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, do I see, I will always – that's the part that does make me a little sad. It's a little bittersweet because it's one of the great joys of Magic, getting in there with an Elvish Spirit Guide or a Simian Spirit Guide. Like, that's just clean living. But the banning of Simian Spirit Guide, sure. You could it's a little dubious that you can just play 8 in Legacy and 0 in Modern. But we'll see how long that lasts, since you can play 8 in Vintage, so maybe Vintage is the 8 Spirit Guide format.
Yeah, but Legacy also has 4 more Force of Wills than Modern does. They're real Force of Wills.
For no reason, 4 more Lotus Petals. Jesus. So what about Field of the Dead, man? This card, it's like banned, unbanned, suspended, unsuspended, rebanned. But this card just keeps going all over the place.
Weird. I mean, is that really... I never felt like Field of the Dead was a problem in Modern. I used to play a lot of Modern. I just never bothered by it.
I think there's only 2 ways to do it. Either Field of the Dead is a problem, or Primeval Titan is a problem.
Primeval Titan is a problem. I respect a Primeval Titan.
And that's what I'm saying, is that you could do it either way. I think you can't. The problem is that as powerful as Modern is, Primeval Titan and Field of the Dead are both obviously unbelievable format-defining, pushing pillars, right? You can get away with some of those, and that provides the texture that defines the entire format. But sometimes those are too synergistic. And Field of the Dead Primeval Titan is the epitome of too synergistic.
Well, I think that the interesting thing is Primeval Titan is clearly a loser this week, right? Like, lost some friends, lost arguably 2 good friends.
Every single card here is one of its friends. Every single one.
Oh, I guess.
Primeval Titan lost everything. Uro was a part of several Primeval Titan
You're right.
decks.
Yeah.
Tibalt's Trickery, Primeval Titan was the premier sideboard plan. Simian Spirit Guide was powering the best Primeval Titan decks. Mystic Sanctuary? My God, does Primeval Titan Mystic Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Field of the Dead? The problem with Primeval Titan.
So, he lost
There's going to be 5 more bans because of Primeval Titan. Primeval Titan, they're going to keep banning cards because they want Primeval Titan to be good in Modern.
And he's still good. He could still put together a Molten Pinnacle. If you wanted to, you could put together... There have been plenty of very serviceable deck designers who all they do with their Primeval Titans is get Gavany Townships, and they're good. Good deck. I mean, it's doable. I think Primeval Titan is still gonna... I don't think he even moves a tier. He's a loser. Still doesn't move a tier.
He's still tier 1, of course, right?
That's what I'm saying. He's there.
Primeval Titan has got to be on the short list of best cards in the format that are probably... Primeval Titan is kind of in that brainstorm space, right?
What I mean by that is, let's say you have somebody like Oprah who's a hella rich billionaire. You could just subtract Oprah's net worth from Bill Gates' net worth and he might not notice. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know. Oprah's I think Bill Gates would notice if he lost Oprah's.
Yeah, but he would still be hella rich. Richer than most of the other hella rich people. He'd
be way richer than Oprah.
Still, even if he lost
Right.
all the Oprah. That's what
Right.
I'm saying. So I think Primeval Titan is just like, yeah, that sucked for me. Still up here. Still going to keep going and, not having a nice time for the rest of y'all.
Dude, it's not clear that this change even like I don't know that Primeval Titan isn't going to just be the best week 1.
Yeah, I mean, like, it doesn't hurt Primeval Titan's ability to slay strongholds very much, right? Like, this didn't affect me.
Yeah, well, they're going to do that more just because the best thing was Field of the Dead. The second best was Valakut, except you have to play a messed up deck. The Field of the Dead Primeval Titan thing, you can just fill your deck with, like, dope green cards.
I thought the sideboard plan out of the Tibalt's Trickery thing was pretty cool. Like, they actually have to spend all that mana that they're accumulating now. And, I mean, that's a thing that you kind of take away. Like, I feel like this is... It just feels to me, I don't know if this is a fact, it feels to me like super overkill on one or two strategies. Like, we were just talking 2 or 3 weeks ago about how clever that Mystic Sanctuary Mystic Sanctuary kind of side plan was for attritioning out Thoughtseize decks. I loved it. I thought that was a really clever implementation. Here we have, all these things, including just the collateral damage on Primeval Titan are hitting kind of the same area.
So here's a question for you. Do you even know what formats, like, out of the main one, like, do you even, like, Field of the Dead has been banned and unbanned so many times. Do you even know what format you can play Field of the Dead in?
I bet I can play it in Legacy and Vintage.
True.
I can't play it in Historic, can I?
No, not anymore.
I'd say yes to Pioneer. Am I wrong?
You cannot play it in Pioneer.
Alright, so it's just Legacy and Vintage?
Yeah.
Alright, there we go.
The ban list at this point, it's unbelievable how many times you have to scroll down to look at all the ban lists. It's so insane. Here's another sick one.
I'm going to give myself 0.75 out of 1 on that one.
Dude, here's another one. Here's another great one. What format can you play Nexus of Fate in?
Can I play it in Legacy?
You can. Legacy and Vintage, of course. Any other ones?
I'm leaving it at Legacy.
So, Nexus of Fate is no longer legal in... whatever, you're right. It is... Legacy is the spot where you draw the line. I like that they're not doing as much of this best of one is a separate list stuff anymore.
Oh, I hate that. I don't mind that people play best of one, and I think that it's really cool. I love the fact that people can get kind of a digestible bit of Magic, and they don't have to sit there for like 3 hours to get their Magic fix, especially now that Magic is moving on to mobile platforms as well. But I don't want to treat it as a different game, at its guts.
For now. We'll see. Dude, Legacy. So, we've been talking about it, Legacy. I, for one, am glad that Uro is not banned in Legacy. Uro is appropriately powered for the Legacy format and is a staple. Second, I am very pleased with Oko being banned in Legacy. Oko is a messed up card. Oko is like a defining card in Vintage.
Oko, this is the grand champion, right? Like, Oko is only playable in Vintage now.
Dude, it is... I didn't say that Jace the Mind Sculptor was gonna be better than all that would ever come later. That's all I'm saying.
Good.
All right, so...
Will Chamberlain remains the greatest statistical outlier in the history of professional sports. I'll put it to you that way.
Are you kidding? No. Please. Maybe that's a debate for another day. But
he led the league in assists, man.
So what? How many teams were even in the NBA? Come on, man.
He averaged over 48 minutes one year.
I know.
He only had one title, though.
Yeah. You're telling me that there are not other bigger statistical outliers in professional sports?
I guess it depends on how you want to measure things. He has like 6 fewer championships than Tom Brady.
Okay, how about this? Was Wilt Chamberlain better than... Okay, first of all, if you think that Wilt Chamberlain is the best player of all time, that's also confusing, right? Because...
I didn't say that.
Like,
I
dude,
did
what
not
about,
say
like,
that.
Michael Jordan and LeBron James?
I think,
those are pretty good players, right?
I think LeBron James is the greatest player of all time.
However,
he's not the greatest statistical outlier.
So, are you telling me that Wilt Chamberlain was even the best player of his era? Let's say he was. Let's say you think he's for sure better than Russell, right? Are you saying that Wilt Chamberlain is an amount better than Russell, equal to the amount better that Simone Biles is compared to anybody who has ever lived? She's 23, and she's already so much better than anybody who has ever lived.
Yeah, so one of my good friends who's a CrossFit commentator claims that she's the greatest. I mean, we don't know yet because she's so young. That, like, if she's not on your
she's
short...
definitely the best gymnast.
No,
but if she's not on your list for the best athlete
his argument is
you're insane.
If you don't have her on the short list of greatest athletes, period, you just don't have a good enough purview.
You don't understand.
And he has her at number 1, which is interesting.
I don't think that's unreasonable at all. There's no way she's not on the short list.
Yeah.
And she's 23. Now, granted, the time frame for gymnasts is an accelerated one, but her career is not over at all, right? Second of all, you know how Wilt Chamberlain had to have rules changed for him?
Yeah.
Over and over again because it was just too much? Same with Kareem.
Same with LeBron, though.
Yeah, oh yeah. And so Kareem had the rules and Shaq too, right? So Kareem was so dominant in college that they actually banned dunking while Kareem was playing. Like, until he stopped playing.
First of all,
that's so messed up.
I don't know who quote Kareem in college was. There was a player called Lou Alcindor who played for John Wooden, though.
Okay. Look, all I'm saying, dude, is that like Wilt Chamberlain getting it's one thing, by the way, to have the rules changed forever and that's it, they stay. It's pretty messed up if they change the rules and then they change them back because you're not there anymore. Okay,
that's not even the best Kareem in college story. So Kareem doesn't win the title his freshman year because freshmen aren't allowed to play back then in championships. So he wins sophomore, junior, and senior year, right? So every sports writer's like, we're going to go back to the normal way of choosing the NCAA champion. And then, of course, UCLA just wins the next year anyway without Kareem. That's the best story.
You know who the best college player of all time was? Like, college age player? Who wasn't in college?
LeBron.
Actually, here's an even better one. You know who the best high school player of all time was? Wilt Chamberlain when he secretly played in the NBA.
Really?
Dude, when Wilt Chamberlain played in the NBA under an alias, because you weren't allowed to play in the NBA when you were under 18... So sick. He doesn't even get credit for those years.
One of the reasons that I have such a soft spot for Wilt is that Seth Byrne once told me that he went on to become one of the greatest volleyball players after he was...
Oh, yeah. He's a Hall of Fame volleyball player.
So
unreal career. Had an entire whole career up until the... I just think it's so sick. When he's like in his mid-50s and just nonchalantly bench pressing 500 without trying. Okay.
All right, well, we have not yet gotten to Dreadhorde Arcanist.
So Simone Biles, they changed the rules. They won't even let her do certain moves she can do. They ban stuff she does easily because it's too dangerous for anybody else to even try. So they ban stuff that she can do. And she would get unreal credit for it if she could do it, which she can do, except they have to ban it so nobody else tries. That's so crazy. It's one thing to ban something because it's too effective, but to ban it because only one person can do it safely? That's so crazy. That's like, what if somebody could just... Like, that's like somebody, there happens to be a person who's 8'5" and athletic. I guess we're going to have to change the rules, right?
That's literally how they do the rules in the WWE.
So, in Legacy, dude, Oko wasn't the only ban. Dreadhorde Arcanist. I will admit, I would not have listed this one, but I totally understand it.
I think that if you and I were living Legacy day in and day out, the same way that we have like a sharp eye on Standard or something, we might have noticed something a little bit different.
No, I knew that it's one of the best creatures and one of the defining ones. What I mean, though, is that it's just a little bit of a pivot from their design philosophy, or their ban philosophy normally. They normally never ban the creature. They don't ban the Delver in Legacy, you know? That's just not how they do it in Legacy.
They ban the cantrip, right?
Yeah, it's weird, because in Vintage, they restrict the mana, and in Legacy, they ban the cantrip. Yeah, so you're right. They ban the cantrip. But the thing is that Dreadhorde Arcanist was so warping, they were making it so that you had to play all the cantrips, and I think they got into a spot where the Legacy community, and also, by the way, kudos to them for listening to the Legacy community, because even though you and I wouldn't have guessed Dreadhorde Arcanist, from what I understand, the Legacy community actually advocated it, and that's actually hat tip to them for it's a reasonable ban. And if that's what the people who are actually the most deeply invested wanted, it's understandable. And that's also just I think that's how a lot of the Legacy and Vintage banned stuff should involve the community that plays it. When the community is so small and the stakes are so high to people's collections, I think that's just awesome. I'm a fan.
I like it also.
You know, and then finally we have too strong for modern Masters Arkham Astrolab. Now too strong for Legacy. Good.
But that card is so dumb. Like,
it is. Now here's the question.
It's literally the same card that they just banned, like or restricted Vintage, but it also fixes all your colors. Like.
Well, no. Now, here's the real question for you. In Vintage, like, what about Arkham's Astrolab there? How long until it's restricted?
Oh, I don't think that. Oh, restricted? Nah.
Yeah. You don't think so?
Two reasons. One, there's a little deck building cost going on here that you might not necessarily have.
You have to play with Snow-Covered Island. That's your deck building cost.
Yeah, but how many Snow-Covered Island do you have in your deck?
How many does it take?
1.
2. They might strip mine the other one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, 2 Snow-Covered Island might be a lot, Patrick. For some decks, it might be a lot.
No, it is a lot. It's definitely a lot. I'm just saying that times might change, man. I think that the interaction between, being able to just play Arkham's Astrolab with, being able to just pick everything back up, and paradoxical outcome, I don't know, man. I think there's going to be a day where maybe paradoxical outcome's the problem, but there's going to come a day, man. I think
I like this ban in Legacy. I don't think it's going to happen in Vintage.
Dude, can we make like a predicted market where people can buy and sell futures of banned and restricted list changes for Magic?
First of all, of course we could, but that seems like a lot of effort for something that not very many people would get a lot of enjoyment out of.
True. But, dude, it could be dope.
It could be done.
So, are you in favor of Arkham's Astrolab being banned in Legacy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that card is it's a silly Magic card. So, I don't think it's going to get banned in Vintage for the reasons I said. In part, not just because of the amount of deck building costs required, but because a lot of the games just don't even have that many lands in play. So, I don't even know if this is bad for play patterns in Vintage. Seems fine to me.
Here's the sick thing. You know what I think actually pushed Arkham's Astrolab over the edge?
Tell me.
I mean, maybe I'm just imagining it, but we've already seen so much power from fetching up the snow-covered tapped duels in Modern. I wonder if that was the tipping point.
Hasn't even happened yet, though.
People do it in Modern all the time.
No, in Legacy. That's what I'm saying.
They do it a little. Don't they?
I haven't seen it yet.
But... No, I don't think they do. But they will. They will. Watch. I predict we're going to
Now that they banned Arkham's Astrolab, you think they're still going to want to do that?
Dude, I don't know. Snowman is like crazy. There's got to be some purpose, right? Like people are going to want to they're still going to want to play the Flying Death Touch guy, you know?
Oh, yeah, he's good.
He's super good.
Yeah, I mean,
I will bet you a cupcake that we will review a deck that did well at a league or one of the leagues or events. We're going to review one in 2021 where somebody puts up a good finish that we review their deck with a tapped Snow Duel in Legacy.
Okay, I guess I'm going to owe you a cupcake. And the reason for that is some listener is just he's going to do it. He's going to do it well. He's going to make sure we know. And then I'm going to have a cupcake debt, which I will be happy to pay.
And if she or they figures it out and does it, give me the heads up, please. Your glory. My glory is your glory. We will do this. I am so into it.
It is not only your glory, it is my negative glory, which I think is going to be worth way more than that cupcake.
So finally, we've come to Vintage, where one of the two great wrongs was finally righted. Luris of the Dream Den is unbanned.
What was the other great wrong?
What was it? It still is wrong. It's still wrong. It's been wrong for a very, 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 very long time. Shahrazad is still banned in Vintage.
All right.
That's not okay.
I just wanted to know what the other wrong was.
It's Shahrazad. It's Shahrazad.
You gotta admit, if people played it, it would make games very long.
Dude, I get having Shahrazad be banned from MTG Arena or MTG Online, but don't have Shahrazad banned in Vintage where it's full on. You can play every card in Magic in Vintage. Like, that's the general rule. And obviously they don't allow cards that are criminal offenses like Dark Pact. But, like, come on, man. Shahrazad doesn't mean you're wrong. You're just weird. You can get out of it. You can
celebrate
just concede.
Weird.
I don't know, man. They've got rules for this. If they can allow people to play with Emrakul and Mesmeric Orb and the Basil, if Basil Monolith is just legal and you just work it out by the judges just saying, come on, man. You can do it with Shahrazad. Just work it out with some, come on, man. That's all. That's all. Dude, how many names? I got to get a petition started. This is like a really big deal.
We can start one.
Also, full disclosure, I don't own any Shahrazads, and I will not acquire any without saying something on this show first, or more likely waiting for them to get unbanned so I can rock that.
Okay.
I don't want any speculative time. I just want justice.
That's important to note, and I really appreciate your sharing. I didn't realize about the injustice of Shahrazad, and now that I do, I can't say that I care any more or less than I did before I knew.
But finally, this is it. Now the formats will be good. Now we can rest.
Okay, let's rest then. Have a nice week.
I'll see you later.